Hello again. Now we start to go through the quality function deployment QFD exercise. And on this video or set of slides, we'll go through what is included in the first step. As you can see, we speak about VOC, voice of the customer, and Kano model. Like you already learned from your voice of the customer exercise, it is important to understand who are your customers, what they really want or expect from you. And when you have done that, you can start using the QFD model. So when you have in a group identified your customers and identified their needs, you can start using the first section of the house quality model. The thing is then to write down the way you have described the different needs in more clear terms. Prioritize them using the scoring from 1 to 5, where 5 is the highest priority and 1 is the lowest priority. You will understand later why you should do this. And again, this is a group exercise. To really be able to do this, you have to understand that there might be different customers. Very often there is no single voice of the customer because different customers, type of customers, usually have different needs and priorities. If you really think about your hotel and restaurant case that you had in your voice of the customers, there is probably different kind of and different type of customers like families, singles, young couples, business people, and so on. They all have different needs. That's why it's important to put the different types of customers in the different segments that are called typically market segments. Most typical market segments are based on different kind of features or statuses. For example, the customer status, if it's a former customer, current customer, customers we want to get, like customers of competitors, or if they are substitute customers. It also might be considered to use where they are in a customer chain. Are they internal users, distributors, end users? Because you understand that the needs for each type of customers are different. For example, if you are selling to company that is selling to end user, their needs are different, but you might have to take into account also the needs of the end user. It might also be segmented based on the product or service they buy from you, or, which is the most typical case in so-called ABC classification in sales, what is the volume of the purchases, high, medium, or low? Sometimes it's also good to segment the customers based on the geography. For example, in Finland, the southern Finland is the busiest area, just like in most countries, the capital area is different. But there might be other features as well, based on the geography, that is causing that the needs are different in different areas of the country or your business area. One segmenting reason might be the reason for buying. Or it might be that you distribute them based on industry, division, department, or just demographics, just such like gender or age. For example, in food sector, if you do, shall we say, bread or ready-made foods for end users, it do change the needs for the customer based on their, again, if they are singles, small families, big families, elderly people, and so on. Before you do the segmentation, it's also important to think, do you really need to do segmentation? If all your customers seem to have similar needs across the board, you don't necessarily have to divide them in segments. But be very careful before you do this. Think seriously if they can be seen, and if you even suspect that there is different groups that have significantly different needs, then it's always wise to do the segmentation. Another, shall we say, major feature or reason to do segmentation and think about it is based on the value for the organization for each customer. It might be that you have a small group of customers who give you the best volume, who are the most valuable for the organization. And since at least I have never seen projects where you have so much resources that you can do everything at the one time, you should really think about which ones to focus on first. So that's why it's important to identify and focus the most important segments for the first parts of the development. You can then later work with the less important segments. This is an exercise that is helping you also your group assignment. Think about your own customer or your own case study. Or if this is difficult now, think about some of your current or past company products or services and possible customer segments for them. Use about 15-20 minutes for this exercise. Select a specific process or a product or service. List the customers and then identify the segments using the type of picture like we have here below. Stop the video now until you have done this and continue when you are finished with this exercise. Sometimes finding the right questions to ask in the voice of the customer exercise is not so easy. So here are some questions that you should almost always ask. For example, what is important to you about our product or service? And if possible, ask them also to rank in the order of importance their answers. Ask them also to tell what they think as a defect in your service or product, what they don't like. If you think about the Kano model, what are the dissatisfiers? How are we performing on the areas you consider important? Again, asking from the customer. What do you like about our product or service? And an important question, because many times customers already have ideas how to improve product or service. They might give you good, valuable information in this. What can we improve? And especially when you work in business-to-business sector, very important question is, what can we do to make your Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer job easier? And if there is any specific recommendations you would make for us. There are different kind of questions that we could add on this list, but because you do this as a team exercise, use the team and discuss among your team what kind of questions you really should ask. In the VOC exercise, we spoke about the affinity diagrams, but this is to remind you that this is really a valuable tool. And based on the experiences from many projects, this will take time. That's why we always recommend to use some white space, whiteboard, paper even big table, the top of that, and use something like sticky notes to write down what you really find out, who are the customers, and use some different color on describing what are the segments, because almost always it happens so that the first segments that we think about, when we really go into deeper, we find out that they are not the right segments, or some of the customers are not in the right segments at all. So make it as flexible as possible. Find a good consensus and common ground for discussion in a team. Like said in the beginning, we also use what is called Kano model. You can again find a lot of more information in internet by searching the word Kano model. This is helpful to understanding different types of customer needs, but from more the purchasing point of view. Because there is a major risk that if we want to fulfill all customer needs without really understanding the type of requirements they have, we might end up doing wrong decisions and even wrong solutions. If you don't do this exercise, you take a risk that you provide unrequired quality, which is costly and takes time. Focus only on what customers say and not really what they mean, what they think or believe. So there is 3 different kind of ranks for customer needs. The first one, dissatisfiers, is something where you really have to understand that they are just basic requirements. And most often they are not enough. They are actually type of things that cause that the customer will not buy your product or service again. And if you don't even fulfill those, the customers will be extremely dissatisfied and spread the word that don't use this service or product. Problem is that most often these kind of things are unspoken. You really have to dig in to find out what they really are. Satisfiers are the things that, yeah, they meet the requirements. They are the standards. And they are usually very often told, spoken out, but they don't give you any specific advantage in the market. They just make your product good enough that if the customer is not really demanding and focusing on the requirements, they buy that. When you want to really get customers and new customers, you have to focus on what is called delighters. Those are the things that exceed customer requirements. Unexpected features, unexpected characteristics that impress customers and give you extra credit. Problem is that most often they are also unspoken, so you have to, again, get some proactive information to see what are those things. If you have ever been in Mediterranean area, in many restaurants, after you pay your bill, the owner or waiter or waitress brings you something extra. For example, increase small piece of baklava or some drink, just to say, no, we like you as a customer, so this is just a compliment from the chef, or compliment from the kitchen, or compliment from the bar. Those are the delighters. They give you some extra. Focus on those as well. This is now the Kano model. As you can see, it's just again a field, 4 fields, where you have not done or done poorly on the left side, done very well on the right side. On the bottom, low customer satisfaction, and on the top, high customer satisfaction. And you see that there's dissatisfiers, satisfiers, and delighters. What more you can find products that are in the top right corner, the better you will make in the market. And now when you really think about it, many times these are not, shall we say, the counterparts for each other. What is dissatisfying might not be delighter if you fix it. It just made you to be good enough to get customers satisfied. For example, now when we really think about sustainability and responsibility, many customers want to see sustainability as a minimum requirement. They want to see that company is responsible as a minimum requirement. So not meeting those requirements are actually dissatisfiers. Meeting them are satisfiers, and just giving some extra on this will give you positive advantage in the marketplace. Stop again the computer for a while and think about this. Think about the product or service you know and write down the dissatisfiers, satisfiers, and delighters that you can find out. Use 5 to 10 minutes for this. So stop the video for that time now. So we have gone through the first box of the house of quality. You have write down your customers, segmented them, captured the voice of the customer for each group, and you have ranked them for each requirement so that you can see how your house starts to build up. Here we have a hotel, restaurant, catering example. So when you really think about your voice of the customer exercise for your team, you can see that this is in relation to that. And you also see here the different kind of segmentations we have done. But please don't take these answers as the final and best answers. These are just for example here. So think with your team how to really segment and what are the real requirements the customers tell in each of their comments. And then put the importance in the squares that are required here. We give you also another exercise to think as a, shall we say, home exercise. Think yourself as a water pistol company. Write down all the customer types you can think of, and then select few of them to write down the types of voice of the customer. You can imagine this, or even maybe know what kind of comments they would get. For example, the kids might want to that the water pistol have to fire far, must be fast to reload, and so on. But when you really think of other segmentation like parents, maybe some other kind of companies or other kind of parties, even like stag parties, who also sometimes use water pistols, you get a different point of view for this exercise. So take each VOC for these chosen segments and rank them. Just do this as an exercise. We'll come back to that in later studies.